Check. What's happening, everybody? How we doing? My theme music. Just looking for it. We got a lot going on right here. A lot going on. How's everybody doing? Happy Friday to you. We are live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook, and we're live on LinkedIn. I haven't really been like the live streamer. In fact, it's been a couple years since I've live streamed, since Blab came out and went away. Sad days. R.I.P. Blab. Such a great platform. But I discovered a new, after my last, my huge announcement, if you tuned in for that, was that I'm writing my second book with my friends at Self-Publishing School. And I made that announcement via Facebook Live, and it was just terrible. Absolutely terrible. I'm going to ask you guys to bear with me for half a second. I'm going to turn a fan on because it's a little hot in here because we're on fire. Here. All righty. There we go. Sorry about that. It's getting a little toasty in here. They would call that leaving the frame in the TV world, I believe. But all right, here we are. I believe I've got comments going here. Show comments. All. Okay, cool. So if you're commenting, I should be able to see it. If I don't see it, then by all means, I will reply to everybody after the training. The goal of this training is, if you have a question throughout the training, you can comment wherever you're tuning in from. So YouTube, Facebook. I need to take my autofocus grid off. There we go. Don't mind me. Hey, listen, technical difficulties are going live. It just happens, okay? Live just never goes off without a hitch. So if you're here on Facebook, leave a comment below so that I know you're here and I can say what's up to you. If you're tuning in from YouTube, what up, YouTube? Really proud of the channel that I built with my good friend Owen. Video was in his intensive, when was it? A couple months back in February. And my channel doubled in size. It was like 350 subscribers. I'm approaching 900 right now. And I'm really proud of what's going on with my YouTube channel over at youtube.com/podcast launch live. If you're watching this right now on the channel, I appreciate you for tuning in. I appreciate you for being a subscriber. And of course, LinkedIn, we cannot forget LinkedIn, but it's new language for me. LinkedIn Live is new language for me. I'm not accustomed to being able to hear. I don't know why I can't see my comments here. Okay. They're not letting me here. I don't know what the dealio is. I'm trying to choose where I can see my comments at, but it's not cooperating. So I'm going to get back to all the comments after the training. If you have any questions, go ahead and write them down and feel free to type them. You can type them in the comments because I'm going to go back to the comments and I'm going to be answering them anyhow in the comments. So I need to close out 500 windows that I've got open here just so that I can actually function with my slide deck. So the goal of this training is, well, just that. I want to train you and help you better understand exactly what it takes to start a podcast. I get a lot of questions about it, obviously. How do you start a podcast? How do I get it in that iTunes thing? What equipment do I need? Do I need a studio like yours? How does it all work? Help me better understand. I just don't know. So I figured, why not do a Facebook training now that I've got LinkedIn Live, I've got YouTube Live, and I've got obviously Facebook Live. Why not go on, do a free training and help everybody better understand what they don't know that they don't know about starting a podcast? So got a few people jumping in the comments here over on YouTube too. K Beauty out of Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. As my friend Owen Video would do, he'd do like a virtual like high five, but it drives me nuts when he does that. So I refuse to do that. Blaine Farmer's in the house over at YouTube too. What's happening? Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, if you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, if you comment, I see all the comments right here. In fact, if it's a question, I can put it up on the screen too. It's pretty nifty, I tell you. So I am doing this training this week because I want to help you understand how to start a podcast if you've been thinking about doing it. Number one. Number two, I'm very excited to announce that I'm launching my monthly podcast launch class, which is my monthly mastermind. So the reason that I have decided to do this is because I was in Owen Video YouTube intensive, and it included one-on-one training once a week, and then also group training. And it was extremely powerful because I was able to get one-on-one training with Owen, and he'd be able to just make sure my YouTube game was on point. But then I also was able to hop in the group training once a week. He calls it office hours. And what happens is I can go and jump in office hours once a week. It's on like Thursdays from 4 to 6. And I can workshop what I'm working on with my other with my YouTube channel, with my peers. So we had other YouTubers in there, just like me, that were in there to understand what it took to start a podcast, or excuse me, start a YouTube channel. So the one-on-one coaching, and good, you're in the right place, Blaine. You're in the right place, brother. We're going to walk through exactly what it takes to make that happen. What's up, Ed? Ed Weinberg's in the house over on Facebook. What's up, Facebook? I appreciate you guys tuning in. I don't know if anybody's watching on LinkedIn at all. They literally just approved my application after like 5 months. They haven't given LinkedIn Live to everybody, just so you know. It's not a standard feature. So I'm kind of special. I'm just kidding. I bugged them and continued to apply, and they gave it to me. They haven't given my good friend Shay Robottom with 300,000 followers on LinkedIn Live yet, but they gave me LinkedIn Live. So I'm going to leverage it and utilize it and try to tap in to my network there. But I enjoyed the group element so much. And when I started to talk further to Owen about that group component, he said, oh, you've got to add it to the Podcast Launch Lab program, because people are working with you one-on-one, super. But if you had that group component, it's the same concept. My group coaching involves people starting a YouTube channel. Your group coaching involves people starting a podcast. And I thought, not just a hat rack. You got their own video, not just a hat rack. So after months of figuring out and deciding how I was going to launch this, I finally just put together what it was going to include and how the whole thing is going to work. And in order to introduce that and just try and come out of the gate and say, hey, join my mastermind, I want to give you some training on how to start a podcast and to kind of give you a taste of what to expect while being in my podcast launch community. So it's called the Podcast Launch Class, the monthly podcast launch class. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through everything after the training, because I want to give you all the good stuff. Well, that is the good stuff, but I want to give you the valuable training first. And then after that, I will give you an overview of how this entire mastermind is going to work. I'm really excited about it. This is not just some course that I'm selling. This isn't some, I'm selling you some PDF, or this is a membership into my monthly mastermind. That is a private community of individuals that are like-minded, individuals that have started a podcast, want to start a podcast, started a podcast, but don't have a podcast anymore, but want to restart it and just be in community with other podcasters and then learn from myself. Podcasting has been around for 17 years. It's just now gaining popularity over the past, I'd say probably 10 years. And even more so over the past 90 days with us being in the midst of a pandemic. So podcasting is here to stay. Podcasting will replace radio. You can mark my word on that. I don't know that it'll replace internet radio, because Sirius XM is pretty cool. I enjoy having that in my car, but I also like having Apple Play so that I can tune in any of my preset listening preferences like podcast or streaming music right into my car too. I believe eventually you're going to get on an airplane, you can get on a train, wherever you're going to go, and the seat back in front of you is going to be a television or a monitor that you can log in with your preferences, and you can pick up where you left off and listen to your podcast and watch videos and sign into your email and do all the above. Why? Because we're living in this world that's becoming frictionless, because technology is allowing us to do things like, order shampoo while we figure out that the moment that we figure out that we're out of shampoo, like in the shower, like, hey, Alexa, order me some more Pert Plus. So I don't really need shampoo, as you guys can tell here, but that's the reason behind this. For those of you not familiar with who I am, I'm going to just do a quick introduction on who I am. You might have just clicked a link. Somebody may have sent it to you. Maybe you're on my list and you haven't met me before. We launched an ad campaign on Facebook a couple of weeks back to create some interest and find people that want to have a strategy session about starting a podcast. A lot of those individuals could be watching right now. That could be you. If that was you, thank you for clicking on my ad. If we haven't talked yet, I look forward to scheduling a call and chatting with you about your podcast. But the other side of my community is people that have followed me and people that I've connected with on LinkedIn, of course, that I built over the past year on the podcast Launch Lab YouTube channel. And then, of course, good old Facebook, where you've just got a network of people that you've met from all areas of your life, and people from back in the day and current people. And just it's an exciting time to be alive and how we communicate here. So I'm going to pull up the old slide deck, even though I'm like anti-slide deck normally. You like my shirt? Ask me about my podcast. Shout out to Podfest Expo. This was the last event that went down pre-COVID. So good times, good times. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. We're going to run through the slide deck, and I'm going to give you a good idea and understanding. When I get done with these slides, you're going to understand how to start a podcast. Okay. And then I'm going to walk you through just a quick overview of what the monthly podcast launch class looks like. If it resonates with you and you go, I got to do this. I want to be in community with guys like Sebastian and other podcasters, and I want to take my podcasting game to the next level. Let's do it. Now, quick disclosure. Joining the podcast mastermind on a monthly basis is not my podcast launch lab program. So our core program here at the Podcast Launch Lab is a turnkey 90-day podcast launch service that takes you from idea to iTunes in 90 days or less. This webinar, this training is not about the Podcast Launch Lab program, although it is available. So if you're thinking this training is great, I just don't have time and I want to hire an expert, myself and my team are definitely a fit for what you're looking to do to start the podcast. And just feel free to hit me up, comment, email me, send me a message, slide into the DMs on Instagram, whatever you see fit on here. But this program is designed for everyone meaning, even if you don't want to hire someone and you're doing it on your own, even if you've already got a podcast. But again, community is a great, powerful component to have, especially when you're on this content creation journey. All right. Who else is joining us in here? Don Wiley, what's happening over on Facebook? Rachel over on LinkedIn. All right, LinkedIn Live works. You like my microphone? Thanks so much. It's called a pod mic. It's made by Rode. I've got this thing plugged right into my Rodecaster Pro. I believe that's the best podcasting setup you can get. Not the cheapest in town, run you about $800, but the mic's cheap. So if you've got a receiver, mics are $99. Get yourself a stand. You'll be off to the races. All right, let's see here. Who else is showing up here? Bert Salazar's in the house. What's up, Bert? Bert's done 150 podcast episodes on his channel. He's done this because he told me like 4 years ago when I first created the Podcast Launch Lab, I was in this building where the studio now is, but I was on the 5th floor, and Bert and I we're buddies. We were, I think, office buddies. And he told me that he does these white papers and he sends these white papers out to his clients, and it's been effective. And I said, why don't you take those white papers and read them on a podcast? And he actually went. Not a lot of people take my advice like for like literally and then go do it, especially over the water cooler, etc. But Bert did that. So hats off. 115 episodes, Bert. Nice work, buddy. Yeah, I can show that right there. It says, there we go. Sebastian, because of you, I've done 115 podcasts on my podcast channel. You are the best, my friend. Bert, you are the best. Big high five. You got to swing by and see the studio. I would love to see you, Bert. All right, let's get right down to it. Okay, let's see here. Application window. There we go. Okay. All right, I'm going to go into my slide deck, so I'm not going to see. Oh, I am going to see you. Just kidding. Whoops. Okay. I'm not going to see you. I thought that I was. So I'm going to see you guys in a few minutes because we're going to run right through this slide deck. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the comments wherever you're tuning in. YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, they'll populate on this end. If it's a great question, I'll have it pop up on the screen and I'll answer it live right here. And if not, I'm going to get back to each and every one of you. All right. Okay. First things first. Whoops. That is the wrong slide deck. Don't mind me. There we go. That was for my networking group, which is another great title, by the way. Here it is. Okay. All right. That's me. Did you know that? Okay. Can everybody see my my screen? Let's just double check real quick. I'm going to go back. I'm going to stop sharing real quick. Can you see my screen? Could you guys see my screen a second ago? Joyce, Bert, some feedback. Just want to make sure. All right. Can I get a yes? Okay, cool. All right, excellent. You can see my screen. Okay, great. Let me try this screen share again. All right, here we go. All right, how to start a podcast with yours truly. Thanks so much, by the way. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come hang out with me and talk about starting a podcast. I really appreciate it. There's a bunch of things you could be doing right now, and you chose to spend this time with me. We're going to rock and roll for another, I'd say maybe 45 minutes, if that, because I'm going to run through this, and I want to be thorough, and I want you to really get some value from this. I want you to leave this training with at least 2 or 3 things that you did not know about podcasting before you entered the training. So here we go. First of all, what is a podcast? Well, Google would define a podcast as a digital audio file made available on the internet for downloading to a computer or mobile device, typically available as a series, new installments of which can be received by subscribers automatically. And that's exactly what happens when you upload a podcast episode to the internet. People download that episode, not literally download the file. I guess they could if they wanted to, but they download the episode to listen to it, and then they subscribe to your channel. So think of it as modern day radio show. So why do you want to start a podcast is the number one question that you need to ask yourself when you tell yourself, I want to start a podcast. Because if you don't have a why on starting a podcast, it's going to be a real rough journey. It is. Because like writing, it's like saying, I'm going to write a book. What are you going to write about? I don't know. I'm going to talk about a bunch of stuff. I just want to talk about a bunch of stuff. I get that a lot. What kind of podcast do you want to start? I don't know, like a variety show. And the first thing that I tell them is, you know how long it's been since Dick Clark was cool on American Bandstand with a variety show? It's been like 50 years. Okay, so variety shows are not cool anymore. You know what's cool? Finding a topic or telling your story that pertains to a specific topic, telling a story of overcoming and sharing that story and connecting with other people that have done similar things. That resonates with people. So when you ask yourself, why do I want to start a podcast? Well, you want to hear things like, I want to start a podcast because I've got a story that I need to tell. I want to start a podcast because my past was crazy, but I made it through. And some people could be where I was. And me telling my story and interviewing people, like-minded individuals that have similar stories, not the same, similar, can really make an impact. Why do I have a podcast personally, myself? I have a podcast called Beyond the Story podcast because I go beyond the story of what someone's story is, and we just have a unique conversation, and I get to better understand people. I like to tell other people's story. My why is telling other people's story because I'm a storyteller. I believe that's a fit with my brand. Number one. Number two, we love stories. Number two, you want to bring value to the world. So once you figure out your why, you need to figure out how you're going to provide value. Usually if your why is strong enough, the value is already there. So figuring out, well, am I providing valuable content through my podcast? Well, you shouldn't have to think too much if you've come up with your why and you're like, listen, I want to impact people's lives. I want to change people's mindset. I want to help people do what they want to do with their life. And my spotlight just went out. You see these technical difficulties? We're going to keep rocking and rolling. It's all good. It's daylight here. We got some natural light coming in. All right. Two, connection. You connect with people. I connect with so many people on my show to interview them on my podcast, and then I develop a relationship with them. Sometimes they become clients. Sometimes they book me to speak at their event. There's all kinds of different things that take place regarding new connections. But That's the real special part of starting a podcast is connecting with people that you may not ordinarily be connected to. For example, let's say that you are prospecting specific types of businesses, and getting a hold of these individuals at these businesses is or brands are a little challenging at times. Of course, they get 900 phone calls just like yours every single week of people that want to meet with them. But, and a big but, that doesn't mean that if you call them and ask them to be on your podcast, they wouldn't say yes, but they're not getting 900 podcast requests on a weekly basis. So connection, very key. Relationships falls in the same category. You're developing relationships. You're building relationships that will later on. I could sit here as a whole different webinar, sit here and tell you exactly how many phenomenal opportunities have happened over the past 10 years because of podcasting, but they're there. And you never know when they're coming. You have to create your own reality with that by starting a podcast and engaging in relationships with people. All right. Here's how it works. You ready? Let's just get right down to the meat and potatoes of starting a podcast. Step one, you got to choose your name. You got to pick a name for your show. Try not to use the word podcast in your show if you don't have to, right? Mine's called the Beyond the Story podcast because it's just beyond the story. I guess that could be a name too. But while people are still getting acclimated with what a podcast is, et cetera, I really wish there was cordless headphones that were quality, that worked with my board, like quality. I didn't have to worry about dead batteries or anything, but that's not the case. So, okay, cool. Oh yeah, you can see me. Just kidding. You can see me. All right, cool. If that's the case, I'm just going to switch out the battery real quick in my light. Don't mind me. Speaking of batteries. Okay. Technical difficulties, I'm telling you. All right, we're back in action. Sorry about that. You never know when a battery's going to die, just like I got done saying. All right, so choosing a name. You can utilize something. If you're a brand and you're thinking about starting a podcast, you can definitely incorporate your brand name into the podcast. If you're starting a podcast as something that's a passion project or something as part of a personal brand, then I would get creative with what you want to call the show. Sometimes it's your name. It could be the Sebastian Rusk Show. It could be the John Smith Show. It can be the Patty Smith Show. Whatever the case is, you make up the rules. Just make sure that it makes sense and it's not long and drawn out and it's not just weird. It's got to be something catchy. I'm telling you this because I originally started my show. It was called Social Buzz on Air. And then I decided that I was really cool a couple years ago, like 4 years ago, and I was just going to rename it the Seb Rusk Show. Okay. First of all, people call me when they see Seb, S-E-B, like my Instagram account, they automatically think Seb. Okay. There's not two E's there. So it's definitely not Seb. It's Seb, but people mangle it, right? Number one. Number two, when people ask me what my podcast name is, it just didn't jive when I replied. Went to a podcast conference and experienced that. There's a lot of questions, that's where I got this t-shirt, but a lot of questions of, cool, what's your show called? It's called the Seb Rusk Show. And people look at me like, who the hell's Seb Rusk? And I'm like, I don't know. Even though I did, it was me. Hello. But it didn't jive. So I immediately came back and said, you know what? I make up the rules here. I'm a storyteller. I think a great name would be Beyond the Story with Sebastian Rusk. So that's what I did to rename my show. The reason I tell you that story is because, I'm engulfed in the podcasting world, and I ended up rebranding my show because it didn't resonate with me. If it doesn't resonate with me, it doesn't resonate with the people that you're talking to. What in the world does the average stranger think that's finding your show? Very important. So when you're choosing a name, make sure you stay within brand, make sure that it's catchy, make sure that it's creative, and bounce it off people. Okay. I'm not talking about your family. Okay. Because your family lies to you. I'm talking about people that tell you the truth. Okay. I've got a circle of friends that tell me the truth. In fact, when I come up with something good that actually is good, they still tell me how terrible it is. So you know who you are. Next step, get yourself a mic. Now, in the midst of this pandemic, podcast microphones have sold out on Amazon. Go figure. Okay. But that doesn't mean that you can't get a mic on Amazon at all. That just means that they're currently sold out right now. However, I don't believe that's going to last very long. And if you go to the podcastlaunchlab.com website and click on launch a podcast, you can click on the podcast equipment recommendations, and that will actually show you exactly what happened to my camera here. Just turned on. It auto shuts off because that's just what DSLRs do. But if you go to podcastlaunchlab.com, click on equipment recommendations. All of my equipment recommendations are there in my Amazon store. There's all kinds of different ones. They may be sold out right now, but you can also check websites like sweetwater.com. Sweetwater.com is an electronics website. It's got all kinds of nifty stuff to buy pertaining to your podcast. So headphones, mic, but you don't have to make it complicated. If you're just now getting started and this is a hobby, then I would strongly suggest that you just work with your all right, my camera. You just work with your headphones that you've got that come with your iPhone. Okay. So technical difficulties continue to come up because my camera isn't currently working. What do you know? But all right, well, get out of this screen here. There we go. Okay, 2 seconds here. Switching cameras. I know. Hold on a second here. I was like, what's going on with your camera? That's a great question. We're going to move cameras right now. It was okay because we were looking at the what's it called anyway? All right, there we go. Switching cameras, ladies and gentlemen. Switching cameras. Okay, I'm back again. All right, we're going back to the training. I promise. Okay, so we are on the get a mic step right here, and you can go to Amazon, type in USB microphone, search for the ones with the highest ratings, just read some reviews. I personally recommend the Blue Snowball microphone. It runs you about 60 or 70 bucks. Blue also makes a Blue Yeti, YETI microphone. These are all USB microphones. You plug them right into your computer and they're plug and play. So there's no complicated equipment. But again, if you have an iPhone, Android users, you're on your own. But if you if you've got an iPhone, every iPhone comes with free earbuds, plug-in ones. They have a really good mic on them. In fact, an iPhone has a really good mic on it too. If you're in a very quiet place to record a podcast, so like your closet's a room with carpet, something of that nature. Next, you're going to design your cover art. Most of us are not graphic designers. I did this design right here inside Canva, canva.com. If you're not familiar with canva.com, check it out. It'll make you a graphic designer in a day. They got all kinds of templates and whatnot. But this is going to be the branding for your show. This is the logo for your show. So you're going to want to be able to have this because you can't market your podcast. Without this, you have no podcast. It's like that egg on Twitter. There's just no profile picture. It looks completely unprofessional and also looks like there's not even a show. In fact, you can't have a podcast without having album art. Now, I'm going to talk about Anchor in a second here, which is a free platform to start a podcast. And they've got the ability to help you create some album art just to get started. So if you're not technically inclined regarding graphic design, don't fret. You can, I'm looking at the wrong camera. There we go. You can use Anchor, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second, and they'll walk you through like a little tool. It's not that fantastic and like, whoa, look at my cover art, but it's something, and something for you to get started with. All right, step 4, get a mic. Well, that was not step 2. This is step 4, get a mic. Okay. I was tweaking my slides right before we went live. Can you tell? Okay. So that mic that you're looking at right there is this mic right here. It's called a Rode mic. It's made by a company called Rode, RODE, out of Australia. And this mic runs you about 99 bucks. This is not a USB mic. This is a normal XLR mic, like your traditional microphone plug. And this mic plugs into my Rodecaster Pro, which is my board, my podcasting board. And the podcasting board plugs directly into my laptop. So that's how I'm going live right now. And I sound like I'm on my podcast. Create your intro and your outro script. So we've got a name, we figured out a mic, or we've ordered a mic, or we're using our earbuds, whatever the case is. Now it's time to write our intro and outro script. Okay, let me give you an example of what an intro sounds like. This is the Beyond the Story podcast, a show that goes way beyond the story.
And now, Sebastian RUSK.
Shout out to my boy Michael B, the voice of the Miami Heat, for knocking that intro out for me. But that was obviously me in the beginning. I had Michael B do the last part there, and then I have an outro. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Beyond the Story podcast. Be sure to appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. Be sure to appreciate it. Signing off from the podcast, launchlab.com studios. We'll talk to you next time. So the goal of an intro and an outro is to create excitement before the episode. The intro goes before the episode. Introduce the show, create excitement, create momentum, start the episode, and then the outro serves the same purpose with a call to action. So you're looking to keep the energy going from the episode. You're looking to thank your listeners for tuning in. You're looking to show appreciation, but you're also looking to give a call to action, which is make sure you're subscribed to the show. Tell your friends and family about it. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. And that's basically it. So those are bookends for each episode, intro, outro. Now, some people like to put like an intro bumper that introduces the episode after the intro. You can totally do that too. The show's yours. You make up the rules. But these are some of the basics. Next, you're going to plan out your show. And when I say plan out your show, I mean like literally take out a sheet of paper and a pen or a pencil, if that's how you roll. And right at the top of the page, the episode number and the name. And then I want you to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no more than 5 key points that you want to talk about during that episode. And then below that's going to be notes. Notes are information about your guest, contact information, their website, anything you may mention throughout the episode. The reason I'm telling you to take out a sheet of paper and literally write all of this stuff down is because you want to be able to have all of the information that, number one, you use that as a guide when you record. So once you plan your whole show out, you take that piece of paper, go hit record, and you've got everything right there in front of you. It helps you stay on track. Once you're done with that, you type everything. Don't type your show notes out. When I say take a piece of paper out, write it. Our brain thinks differently. You consume stuff differently. You've got it right there in front of you. Not, oh, where's that document? While you're trying to record, you've got it right in front of you. Once you're done, transfer all the information on the piece of paper that you wrote onto like a Google Doc or a Word doc. You're going to need that when you upload your podcast episode to your podcast host. Okay. When you upload it, like uploading a YouTube video, it's going to ask for a title, description, and a few other pertinent information on there. So if that's the case, go ahead and make sure that you've got everything not only planned out and organized on your show notes, but that you transfer to a Google Doc. And when you upload it, you're going to transfer it, and that'll become your description of that actual episode, which you're going to refer to as show notes. Okay. Show notes are a run of show notes, whatever you want to call it, but you must plan out each episode. No one is good enough to just wing it. Okay. Just to hit record and just wing it. And if you do think you are, no one's going to listen, and people could pick up on unplanned. They can totally pick up on unplanned and unorganized. So don't do that, and simply plan out your episode. You'll be glad you filled out that run of show. If you want the template, I'll include it. Just hit me up. I'll send you a copy of what the show notes template looks like. It's in Google Docs, just a simple piece of paper, and you're going to use the same thing every single time. And when you're done drawing on it, you're done recording the episode, you go ahead and transfer that information to a Google Doc. And when you upload your podcast episode, that will become your description. That make sense? Okay, cool. Next, sign up for Anchor. Now, you don't have to sign up for Anchor, but Anchor's free. So for demonstration purposes and for the purpose of this training, I'm going to use Anchor as a podcast host example. Think about Anchor. Think about a podcast host like a YouTube or a Vimeo, except it's for audio, right? So the audio files, right, which is your actual podcast episodes, they have to be uploaded to the internet somewhere so that they can be hosted somewhere. Once they're hosted somewhere, they then get distributed to platforms like iTunes, Spotify, etc. But you have to have a podcast host in order to have a podcast. Now, most of them range from anywhere from free to $25-$30 a month. We personally use acast.com. You can use whatever podcast host you choose. Libsyn is one, Buzzsprout's one, and they'll continue to be more and more that pop up. But right now, for demonstration purposes and for this training, I'm going to just talk about Anchor, because Anchor is literally, it like it says there on the screen, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Okay. You can record a podcast on Anchor. You can upload a podcast on Anchor. You can create an intro. You can use transition jingles. You can put an ad from Anchor on there and monetize your show. You can do all kinds of things all within that platform. So you don't need a podcast host, and you don't need audio recording equipment. You don't need any of that stuff, because it can all be done within the Anchor platform, and Anchor's free. Spotify bought them for some ludicrous amount of money last year, and I'm a firm believer in what Anchor is doing. I've got a podcast on there called the Roll Call Podcast. So when I go live on Facebook, I take the replay for that and I upload it to Anchor. Anchor's also got an app. I'm going to show that in a second. It's going to show in a second here. It's also got a phone app in addition to a desktop. That's why I like both. So if you like desktop, cool. If you like apps, that's cool too. And just utilize Anchor to create your podcast, upload your podcast, record your podcast, all for free. So this is a huge step in the process. And their training and their help and their resources are just unbelievable. So just like it says right here, Anchor is an all-in-one platform where you can create, distribute, and monetize your podcast from any device for free. Now, they make money from advertisers and from other ways, so they're able to offer a free platform. But what's important to understand is that Anchor does not replace the work that's involved with starting a podcast, okay? So if you think, oh, cool, I didn't even know about Anchor, I could totally do this, and I'm going to totally be disciplined and record episodes, and I'll have a podcast. Yay. Sure, go nuts. And I wish you the best, and I hope that happens. What I found in my experience is it doesn't happen. Well, because I don't know, life, family and kids and the Rona, all kinds of life showing up, that hiring a professional is vital if you're serious about starting a podcast, and it's going to help expedite the process. So small little shameless plug right there for the Podcast Launch Lab. But hey, this is my training. I do what I want. Next, you're going to record an episode. That can be done on Anchor too. Okay. Now, when you record an episode, you can do it on, I thought the next slide was the Anchor app slide, but it's not. So when you record your episode, you can do this within Anchor, and you can also pull up the Anchor app and record it right on your phone. If that's the case, you're recording. When you're done recording, you're hitting upload, and then you're filling out all the information. You click publish, and you're done. And it's literally how easy it is. So if you're utilizing the phone, great. If you're utilizing the platform or the web-based application, that's totally cool too. It doesn't matter. You can pre-record somewhere, upload it. You can record right from within Anchor. When I say record right from within Anchor, Anchor is going to ask you for your microphone. So if you got a USB microphone, when you log into anchor.fm, it's going to ask you which microphone you want to use, and that's the one you're going to be recording. So super easy to use. Really, really like the easiest. Like you could probably put like a 5-year-old. Well, 5-year-olds are pretty advanced these days with technology, but I'm just saying you could probably put somebody that's not knowledgeable about this in front of Anchor, and you can easily figure it out, because by design, they've made it that way. So once you've recorded your episode, see right here, record your episode. Messages, people can call into a voice box and leave messages, ask questions. You can go in there and get them and play them on your show. Library, previously recorded audio. So you may have had a previously recorded episode that you may have recorded on your phone, or maybe you recorded on your computer, and now you are ready to upload it to Anchor. You can totally do that. This is what the online dashboard looks like on the web platform. Transitions, that's free music and sound effects that you can play in between, the intro and the episode starting or the episode being over. And if there's no outro, maybe just put music on the back there. And literally drag and drop. You click on record, it checks your mic, you record the episode, you drag it to the right there, and you're off to the races. You can also do that. This is the slide I was looking for. You can upload it. See, you click on the purple plus right there. That's where you're going to record the episode. And then on the right-hand side shows you where your library is at. So you got messages, people leave messages. You can record interludes. So you can literally create your podcast, record your podcast, upload your podcast, post your podcast, all within the Anchor app for free. One more time, does not replace the work that is involved with starting a podcast. Okay. I don't want to scare you, but there's a lot of work involved. If you're willing to do the work, great. Some people are. Most people aren't. Then you got to tell people about the show. Best way I like to do that is I like to create what's called an audiogram. Okay. Looks something like this.
Apps like Peace and Zen, and then just some other kind of smaller name ones. It all started a couple years ago. I had been doing spiritual life coaching, and I was making guided meditations that were totally custom for my clients.
So what happens is I take a clip from the episode, I go into Canva, and I take my cover art, this is the updated cover art on the left-hand side here, and then a picture of my guest and their name and what they do, and then I put it all, create this image, and then I take the image and I go over to an application called Headliner.app. Headliner is $12 a month, but it'll take your image and a 1-minute clip or your whole episode, and it'll create what's called an audiogram. That's essentially a video. Okay. An audiogram is a video. It's an image with audio put on it, and it saves as a video. So technically this thing could be uploaded to YouTube if I wanted to. I utilize this for Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, and the call to action is go click on the link to listen to the episode. When people find the episode, they go and click on it, they listen to the episode, and they'll more than likely subscribe to the show. But when I tell people about it, you see it tells episode 70. It's available on a few of the platforms it's available on, who my guest is. And I really get people excited. You listen to a 1-minute clip of Headliner does some AI, some artificial intelligence for you to go in. You can just choose the podcast episode, and then it'll pick the 1-minute clip, or you choose 15 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever the case may be. And it'll automatically create one of these for you, and it'll email it to you. It's called the Autogram Wizard. So that's a good $12 spent. Another platform is called Capwing, Kapwing. Capwing allows you to create videos and subtitles and all kinds of audiograms, but this is how this is done on here. We teach all of our students at the Podcast Launch Lab how to create an audiogram, how to utilize Headliner. We create one together so everyone's thorough and at least understands how it's done, so that they can delegate it out to their team if needed. So who started a podcast around here? So well, it's been about 3 years now. We've had several shows that we've launched. So that's my old show. Well, still the same show, but I changed the name. And it's been an exciting ride, to say the least. And shout out to Ozzy Martinez Jr. Guy's a disabled vet, Marine, had PTSD, recovered, started a nonprofit, is just doing some great things for veterans and for his fellow Marines. So it's just been a pleasure to work with guys like that. And I tell you, the stories that come through my door on a daily basis of people that want to start a podcast, this is not surface stuff. This is real life. This is real stuff that people want to communicate to the world to make it a better place, saying, hey, I was here. I was there. Now I'm here, and I'm in a better place, and I want to help people. That's totally what it's all about. So where? Well, this is the Podcast Launch Lab. This is where I'm broadcasting right now. As you can tell by the brick here, I have a little more decoration up now, but for the most part, that's what the lab looks like. That's where I sit right there. And then I've got a few mics that go around the studio table here, but we comfortably fit about 2 or 3 people in the studio. And, I look forward to having other studios. I think the Podcast Launch Lab is going to be an absolute empire. So this is just the beginning where we hunker down and build this thing out. And just a quick video of what it looks like inside here. So all I did was take I just took an executive suite and I converted it into a podcast studio. So that's all that happened there. I moved in the end of January, and things have been gangbusters ever since. Thank God. I'm really proud of this place, really proud of my students and the things we got going on here. So that's how you start a podcast. I've covered everything soup to nuts there. Your name, your intro, your outro, some examples, scripting your show out, where to upload it. Now, once you upload it to Anchor, by the way, they have distribution set up for Spotify and for iTunes and for all the other platforms out there. So when I say it's one-stop shop, it's one-stop shop. You probably wonder, how do I get my show on iTunes? Nobody uploads to iTunes or Spotify or anywhere. Those platforms pull data from other platforms. For example, your podcast hosts. So iTunes and Spotify, they pull data through an RSS feed from Anchor. So every time you upload a new episode to Anchor, they know that, and that's how the episode gets populated there. So those folks over at Apple are super smart. All right, so what's next? So what's next is today I'm launching my as I mentioned in the beginning here, my monthly podcast launch class. That's my monthly mastermind. What you're looking at right here is the back end members area that you'll have access to as a member. Okay, you'll be able to schedule an onboarding call if you join the Podcast Launch Lab program, and we're helping you launch your podcast. You'll be able to see podcast recommendations. You see on the left here all the choices. Join the private Facebook group, a monthly training calendar. That's what you're actually looking at right now. So you'll be able to log in here, all kinds of resources. Sebastian, what kind of mic do I need? And then right below that, I'm going to show you this in a second here. I'm going to just go through a quick demo of what it looks like in there. But my podcast launch course is in there. That's 9 or 10 modules on how to start a podcast. Very comparable to this training that you have access to all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Podcast equipment recommendations, and then the monthly training calendar. So I'm going to be going live in the private Facebook group once a month for a training. I'll be posting my YouTube content for videos that I'm posting on the channel in there. And then, of course, interacting and posting and posing questions and getting a conversation and dialogue going with members as the community continues to be built out. But this will be your main hub where you'll go to log in and find all the resources that are available to you as a member of the monthly podcast launch class. So you're looking at access to the private Facebook group and other podcasters, the back end website, which you're looking at right here, access to me through the group and through the monthly trainings that I do. And I do sporadic live trainings in addition to the ones that'll be scheduled. So I'm looking to go above and beyond and over deliver for this community because I think it's going to be explosive. And I think that we're going to do some really, really cool things once this thing starts to get rocking and rolling. I set a mission to help 100 people start a podcast in 2020, and pandemic, no pandemic, I'm going to do it. So hopefully you're going to be part of that process, and I want you part of the community. So here's how it works. You get a monthly membership. We do monthly trainings. You can network with other podcasters, and you get to be part of a community. So that's what the Facebook group looks like. As soon as you join, you'll have access to that. You'll set up your username, your password to log into the member area. And they'll, as well as the trainings that I do in the Facebook group on a monthly basis, will also be archived. So if you missed a training or you're new and it's like, I just joined, but you did a great training back a month ago, you can go back into the archives in the member area. Back here in the member area, there will be an archive training section, a resource section where you can go back and watch all the replays. So that's the best part about technology. We go live and then we take the replays and we put them in your resource center for our members. So that's it. Access to the private Facebook group, monthly trainings, asking me questions, having me at your disposal is what the podcast launch class is all about. I've got a special introductory launch rate for members. You can lock this rate in for the rest of 2020. If you're already in the podcast launch lab right now as a student, you already get this comped as part of your 90-day program. For those of you that are not part of the Podcast Launch Lab program and currently working with me one-on-one to start your podcast, you do have the opportunity to join the monthly podcast launch class. Introductory rate for the rest of 2020 is $197 a month. Okay, so if you go to podcastlaunchclass.com, you can sign up right now. It's going to bring you right into the members area after you pay and sign up, and you will be able to have access to what's in there. Number one. Number two, I'm going to be working on adding a whole different section to this over the weekend. So there's going to be new resources available in there, but you have access to me. You can ask me questions. People do this all the time, but I wanted to get it in a centralized location. So let me stop sharing my screen for a second here. The website, podcastlaunchclass.com. I'm going to type it in the comments. Okay, there we go. Yeah, this camera's not as good as my other camera, but I think the battery died in my other camera. My goodness, when you go live, it just eats batteries. So I have some battery challenges here today. Batteries on my light and with the camera too. So my apologies for technical difficulties. But hey, listen, you got to strike while the iron's hot here. So let me go walk you through the back end real quick, what this looks like. Okay. So I'm currently adding a tremendous amount of things to this area, but I want to at least show you what the members area looks like. There we go. Okay. So just your typical, you'll be able to, in fact, here, let me walk you through. So what happens is, well, let's actually go to this real quick. Let's go to podcastlaunchclass.com. So you're going to go to podcastlaunchclass.com. You're going to type in your name, your email address, click Let's Get Started. Monthly podcast launch class tells you everything that you're going to get. You type your name, contact information, all the normal stuff you do on here. It's $197 a month. It'll run every month. You can cancel anytime you want. If you don't want to be here, I don't want you here. And it's no hard feelings by any means at all. Try it out for a month, see if you like it, but $197 a month for the rest of 2020. So the reason this is a big deal is this price is going to double in about 45 days. So why pay $400 a month when you can pay $197 for the rest of 2020? And who knows what kind of things I got going on by the end of 2020. So the original founding members of the group are always going to have that little extra special care because you really believe from day one what we got going on here. So finish all this. As soon as you complete your order, it's going to bring you to the members page. The members page. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Was not sharing that screen. Let me share the right one here. Okay, share tab. And as soon as you sign up, you're going to, okay, there we go. So you're going to go to podcastlaunchclass.com. It's going to bring you to this page. And then you're going to type in name, email address. Let's get started. That's going to another quick recap of what's included. And then you type in all your billing information. It's $197 a month right now. For the rest of the year, you can lock that introductory rate in. It's going to double within 45 days, if not next month, July 1st. So why pay double when you can lock this rate in? It's $197 a month. You can cancel anytime you want. So once you complete your order here, it's going to bring you directly to a page that's going to look like this. Whoops. Let's share the page. I'm getting the hang of this StreamYard here. I tell you, I'm getting a hang of it. There we go. Here we go. So as soon as you click submit and you sign up, you pay your $197. It's going to bring you to this page. If you don't have an account yet, which you don't because you're brand new, you're going to sign up and it's going to give you a username and password, of which you're going to log in. As soon as you log in, boom, you're in. Okay. So from here, this is only for people that have joined the Podcast Launch Lab program, like to launch your podcast. That's why this is in here, because it's an important link to schedule an onboarding call. It's the very first thing you do when you sign on with us here at the Podcast Launch Lab. But we've got equipment recommendations that'll take you to that link I told you about on the website. You can join our private Facebook group right here. There's a link to do that. It's going to bring you right to the Facebook group. And then you scroll down here. This is a great thing to do, is everything I went over in today's training, you're going to have access to my podcast launch course. So that's all included as being part of a member. You got access to this all the time. You can go through the course daily if you wanted to. I don't know why you'd want to daily, but until you get it is my point. But there's 9 or 10 modules in here, a little bit more extended than what I did before. It's all videos, and with the video comes an outline. Create your show name, design a logo. I really go in depth on my training here to really help you better understand what it takes to start a podcast. So the goal of this mastermind is to be able to have a community that I'm building in addition to the people that we're helping starting a podcast, right? So if you haven't hired us to start your podcast, totally cool, but you're part of the community. Well, if you're engaged in the community, which you should be, you're paying for it. If you're engaged in the community, then you have the ability to learn what you need to learn about starting your podcast. Plus, you've got these resources available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is super cool. All right, I'm going to go to questions and see what questions you guys might have, because the training's almost over. It's 1:53. Holy cow, I stayed on time, and I want to know what questions that you guys have. And maybe you're watching right now, you don't know what your questions are. You can send me a message after. You can drop a link wherever you're watching this. Let me make sure I went through here. What other questions do we have? All right. Well, if there's no questions, you guys can type them in the comments. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. The link again to sign up is podcast launch class. podcastlaunchclass.com. Special introductory rate, $197 a month. Okay, it's going to double next month. So don't cost yourself money for no reason at all. So you see it right there in the lower part of my screen right here, podcastlaunchclass.com. Go ahead and sign up. I want you part of the community because this thing is going to be humongous. I'm not just trying to sell something for $200. I just want to be compensated accordingly for the time that I invest in this on a monthly basis, which I over deliver with, and which is only fair, right? So any questions about this? I know that some existing students, if you're already in the program, don't worry about signing up. You're already part of this until your show is launched. After the show is launched, well, then you get the opportunity to go in and join. Also, we're adding an editing component and a marketing collateral component and management component too, which is basically says, well, I want to be part of the community and I have a podcast. You didn't help me, but I need help with editing. I need help with posting it. And I need help creating those little audiogram thingies. So we're in the process of creating some solutions right now for you. So I'm going to be rolling out other stuff to the community. So you don't have to hire us to start a podcast. My goal is to see you start a podcast. I don't care who you do it with. Just do it and stay committed to it and make sure your podcast doesn't end up in the podcast graveyard. Thanks so much for everybody that's tuning in here. Thanks so much for all the kind words here. Bert, I really appreciate you, man. Keep rocking and rolling. 115 episodes in 3 years, brother. That is awesome, dude. Bert is a financial advisor of sorts. And he's old school, been doing this for a minute, but sees the value in the new technology. As you can see, 115 episodes. Martin OB's in the house. It is cool. It is. You're cool. You're cool, Martin. Martin was sent to me from my good friend Damian Zamora with Go Mobile. I went to work for Damian when I was a young 19 years old. Moved across the country to Southern California. Went to work for him. Became salesman of the year. Made my first $100,000 and quit. And he's just been a dear, dear friend ever since. So he sent Martin over to me. He works with Martin. Martin has a day job right now, but has a marketing agency on the side. And he thinks his podcast is literally going to be his ticket to quitting his job that he's been at for over 15 years and rock and roll with just his agency and his podcast. So I'm fired up to work with people like Martin. Martin, thanks for believing in what we got going on here at the Podcast Launch Lab. And for me, a big virtual high five as Owen Video would do. Melissa, thanks so much. Melissa said, thanks for your insight. I really got a good first impression of starting a podcast. Thanks so much. I think you came from the Shay Rowbottom squad. My good friend Shay Rowbottom has a group with several thousand people in it, Shay Shines. And I think I saw you in that group. So thanks for tuning into the training. I really, really do appreciate it. I'm so stoked to start Shay Rowbottom's podcast. If you don't follow Shay Rowbottom on LinkedIn, you are missing out. She's a total rock star. Jerry Ellis is in the house. Jerry and I met probably 3 or 4 years ago at a gig I had for my friends over at Digital Marketer, do a conference called Traffic and Conversions in San Diego every year. And Jerry's a marketer. They do viral videos like the Squatty Potty, and then they do the marketing behind it. So they set up funnels and marketing and all kinds of different stuff. So super cool stuff. We're getting ready to launch his podcast in a few weeks here. It's going to be called the Hero Video Podcast. And we're going to tell the story of how these viral videos like the Squatty Potty and those type of viral videos actually happen, but then how the marketing happens to go from really start to finish. So all these projects, man, I'm just so blessed to be involved with all these incredible people like Jerry and Martin and Shay and people that may not be tuned in right now. We've launched some awesome shows over the past 90 days. This pandemic has been podcast crazy, I tell you. But if you guys got questions for me, feel free to shoot me an email, srusk@podcastlaunchlab.com. Find me on Instagram @SebRusk. Find me on YouTube. Comment on a video. Comment. Maybe you're on LinkedIn. I know Melissa's tuning in from LinkedIn over there. I literally just got LinkedIn live yesterday, so it's kind of fun to see how this goes. If you join the podcast, if you join my monthly podcast launch class, the replay of this training, well, of course, will be in the replay section of the members area there. The very first live training is happening on the, what is today? Today is the 12th. Okay. The very first training is happening in not this week, but next week. Excuse me. Not this next week, but the week after that. But we're going to be interacting in the group and I'm going to be sharing content and we're going to get the conversation going before I do the first live training. So one more time, we've got 60 seconds. I've literally stayed under an hour. I cannot believe it. Podcastlaunchclass.com. $197 introductory rate. You can lock that in for the rest of the year. You bill monthly. You can leave anytime you want. Includes Facebook training on a monthly basis, access to me and my community through the Facebook group, and then our back-end members area with my podcast launch class. That in and of itself is worth it. You know, the course I sell for $500. So to be able to have access to that forever is great. Just do something with it is all that I ask. Hey, listen, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. Without you guys, this doesn't happen. None of my crazy ideas even come to fruition, but I want to encourage you wherever you're at in your content creation journey. It takes longer than you think. I've been at this for about 10 years now. So I'm just now starting to turn the corner and find my groove of, you know, what I want to do and what I want to be focused on, which is I want to tell stories and I want to help people tell their story by starting a podcast. So whatever you're thinking, whatever your ideas were, I just want to validate those ideas real quick for you and let you know that yes, you can. And yes, it is possible. And I am blessed to be considered a leader, and I consider myself a leader. And with leadership comes massive responsibility. And part of that responsibility is helping usher individuals like yourself to the podcast promised land, being able to make your podcast dreams come true, being able to go from idea to iTunes and launch that podcast. I'm telling you right now, you start a podcast today, you start a podcast tomorrow, you start a podcast next week, this time next year, you'll be so glad that you did. Thanks again for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. If we're just meeting for the first time, it's great to virtually meet you. Drop me a line. I'd love to connect with you further. I hope you got a chance to jump in on the introductory right here at the monthly launch class. If you want to sleep on it, pray about it, talk to a friend about it, wife, friend, neighbor, whatever you want to do, feel free to do that. It's now open. That pricing is going to be available now for a couple weeks, at least a couple weeks, depending on how the demand is. But any questions, hit me up. First training's happening in less than 2 weeks, and the group launches today. So the action starts right now. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. You guys are awesome. Happy Friday, and I'll see you inside the lab.